After 9 long years, The Flash is finally racing into theaters June 16th. But is the movie lightning in a bottle or just a flash in the pan? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. We just saw The Flash and we are dying to talk about it. So we are going to give you a quick non-spoiler review and give our initial thoughts and reaction to the film. Nikki, why don't you start us off? What did you think of The Flash?
It's so weird because I don't want to rest on the laurels of expectations too much, but I think it's fair to say that a lot of people, to put it gently, were skeptical of the film overall. But holy hell, I enjoyed this so thoroughly, and maybe it's because I was wary about it, but I had such a blast with it. I laughed a lot. I cried a pretty decent amount as well, and honestly, it was just a blast of a superhero film, and possibly one of the best DCU films.
There is, before I get into my thoughts, I will say that there is a argument that can be made that this may very well be the best DC comic book film. Hands down.
Whoa.
I think the more people see this and the more that we talk about it in this review, I think you guys will get a better idea of what I mean by that. But my initial thoughts on the film, like Nikki said, it's hard not to go into this film with some form of, or lack of, expectation, because, like I said, we've been waiting for this movie for 9 years. This movie, for me personally, I've been waiting for this movie for 25 years at the earliest, because in the 90s, I grew up reading Flash comics, Mark Waid's run. I love Wally West. Wally West and Dick Grayson are my two favorite characters in DC and two of my favorite characters in all of fiction. So Batman and Flash and their mythologies are very, very close to my heart. Mm-hmm. That being said, I went into this movie with zero expectations. I think DC was such a mess before James Gunn took over and before they did DC Studios. And we all know all of the background of this film going into it. So I really didn't know what to expect. I sat down and I was like, let me just watch this movie and just see what it is. And keeping that in mind, this movie floored me. I can honestly say the opening sequence of this film might be hands down one of the best opening sequences in any movie I've ever seen. I had this stupid grin on my face. My jaw was open. It was such pure comic book joy on my face. I wish you guys could see my reaction to that, because it really harkened back to growing up in the 90s with the DCAU. It felt Andy Muschietti, and we'll talk more about him later, but he was really able to capture the magic that is the DC pantheon of characters. And watching this movie, I finally felt like I was in that world that I grew up in, that world that I loved so much, with these characters that I'm so very familiar with. And for him to capture that energy, it was just, it blew me away. Nikki, why don't we talk a little bit about the plot of the film? Pretty simplistic plot.
I was gonna say, it's pretty much a straight through line, and like I said, we said non-spoiler, but I mean, from what they've shown in the marketing is Barry Allen had lost his mother when he was younger, and he has found a way with the Speed Force to go back in time to bring her back. And of course, at Bruce's caution, that could really screw things up.
Yeah, we've all seen the trailers, and those who are familiar with comics or the really well done Flashpoint Paradox film from the DC animated film series, there's a lot of familiar territory attacked in this film in terms of those storylines. But I do think while the story is pretty simplistic and very easy to figure out, the visuals of this film,
holy hell,
make up for it.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's the thing. It's like, it's a straight through line, but there's definitely a lot of intricacies with the characters involved and kind of, again, the emotional adrenaline. And just like you said, the action set pieces, there's a lot that really elevates it from what could have been like a more basic story.
Absolutely. And we got to talk about Andy Muschietti, because he has, so for some people, he's never missed. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who like a lot of his films, like really loved It.
Yeah.
Didn't like It Chapter 2. Really, he's only done horror. I'm pretty sure his first film, Mama, was a horror film as well.
Yes, it absolutely was. It's like, he's almost like another James Wan.
So for him, a lot of people were very trepidatious with him signing on to this. But for me, listening to him talk about DC and listening to his excitement for this film, I knew that there was something there. And then to watch this film and see what he does with these characters and these visuals, I'm not gonna lie, the Flash is one of the most visually interesting characters in all of comics. He has a lot of abilities that are very uniquely his and very visually interesting. And we've seen speedsters. Other comic companies have done speedsters before on film, and they've people kind of associate certain styles of speed with certain characters.
Want to see me run to that mountain and back? You want to see me do it again?
What he does with the Flash in this film is so wholly unique and so visually engaging that, like I said, I was just in pure comic book bliss just to see phasing and to see the Flash create tornadoes like cyclones and to see him do all of these wonderful Flash abilities. Like, it's just so much fun, throwing lightning, accessing the Speed Force.
Oh my god.
The way that they portray the Speed Force in this film.
The way they portray the Speed Force, and specifically with time travel and how they visually depict that, is unless I haven't seen enough time travel movies that Endgame listed, I don't feel like I've seen that kind of depiction before, at least visually.
It's such a unique and gorgeous way to do that, because we've seen the Flash. Listen, in the time that it took this movie to get made, we had 9 seasons of a Flash TV show. We had plenty of animated movies and appearances of the Flash. We've seen the Flash run through time before, but it's never been done quite this way. And I think for them to take the risk they did with that presents a wholly unique experience for this movie. And I really loved it because it kept me on the edge of my seat, because when I expected this movie to do something, it kind of zigged a little bit and zagged at times. And I really appreciated them for, I wouldn't say subverting my expectations, but just, kind of knowing what I expect and playing with that a little bit.
No, absolutely. I think the effects were great. A lot of the visuals were great. There's one character I'm not 100% thrilled with how the effects look, but other than that, that's a nitpick. I think overall, visually, this film is, dare I say, a marvel.
Speaking of characters, this movie has a lot of them. This movie has multiple Batman.
I want to say, all things considered, it's a lot, but really manageable.
Not only is it manageable, but everyone is on their A game in this movie. There's not one single performance that's bad in this film. Yeah. Ben Affleck, the best, my favorite version of Ben Affleck's Batman that we've ever gotten.
I think that was one of the first things I told you out of the theater, knowing especially how you feel about Batfleck. Batfleck
in this movie felt like watching Conroy's Batman in Justice League Unlimited or the old Justice League cartoon. Michael Keaton is essentially playing a version of Batman 89. There's shades of familiarity there, but we're definitely seeing a new interpretation of Keaton as Batman, and he's just so damn good. He brings so much heart and humanity to this larger-than-life character. I mean, Batman, in a lot of ways, is more super than the Flash in terms of just how high of a standard people hold that character to. And the fact that both Affleck and Keaton are able to give 2 entirely different interpretations of the same character in the same movie, and to have both of them be not only engaging for us as the audience, but critical to the plot of the film and the emotional through lines of the movie. Just so good. Really good.
And the thing is, he even did stuff that was unexpected. Yeah. I'm not gonna say what any of it is, but there's stuff that definitely reminiscent and calls back to 89 and returns, but man, I think you could make the argument that this is also a totally different character.
Yeah, I mean...
Which I think just shows his versatility as an actor.
Absolutely. I think the only complaint I have with the new characters is Sasha Calle as Supergirl, and not that she's bad. It's that she is a scene stealer. Every scene that she's in, she is amazing. Yeah. I think she's just a little more underutilized than I expected her to be.
Oh my god, definitely. Even just watching the movie, I had ideas for where I thought the direction was going for her specifically, and it was definitely not that.
Yeah, by no means is she bad. She is very good. She's very talented, and I expect her to have a very strong jumping off point after this film in terms of projects. I hope she gets so much work after this, because the intensity that she brings to this movie is very welcome, and how she's able to differentiate her Kara Zor-El from our preconceived notions of Clark Kent is so well done, and I really like the direction they chose to go with her character, because she's not Superman. She's not our Superman. she's gonna do things a little differently, and I like that. I really did. But I just wish we would have had more of her, just because I loved her so much.
Right. It's like, it's in the trailer. Even just her, what did you do? Like, in that sent chills down my spine. And then never mind when you see it in context.
Yeah.
So the fact that there wasn't more of that.
She's a very intense. She brings a lot of, like I said, intensity, like raw intensity, passion to this film, and I really appreciate that. We're gonna talk about Ezra Miller now and their performance. I will say I was never really big on Ezra Miller's performance of the Flash. I really was kind of mixed on him in Justice League and the Snyder Cut, but I will say that this is my favorite performance of theirs as Barry Allen and the Flash. It's essentially a dual role.
Oh yeah, this is like a huge undertaking as an acting performance, as two different acting performances.
Absolutely.
Especially playing off of yourself the way they have to do in this movie.
I've never been more emotionally connected to the character as I was in this movie. Their portrayal of both Barrys brings so much heart, much needed heart to this film that, listen, it's a praiseworthy performance, and I think we're allowed to say that, and that of course does not reflect our views on the actor and them as a person. But I will say that this is a very, very strong performance. Quite possibly their best performance in the DCU. Well, not quite possibly. It is the best. Hands down.
I was gonna say, because in every one of their other appearances, with the exception of Justice League, it was literally nothing more than a glorified cameo at most. And
it was that same spastic and like overexcited energy, like Wally, like a fusion of Wally West and Bart Allen.
Yeah, but I'm with you in that they are so much more layered in this film.
Yes.
That in a way that's you almost wish that's what they were the entire time.
They actually make Barry a character in this movie, and they were not able to do that in the previous their previous performances as Barry. I really love the direction they took the character in, and for all of you wondering, you know, is this really a Flash movie, or is this like a Justice League movie? Is this a Batman movie? I'm here to tell you, this is 100% a Flash movie. The Flash is the main character. All of the themes, motifs, storylines, they all lead back to the Flash. And I really think the movie does an extremely tough but well done job of juggling all of these characters and the multiverse and all of these crazy DC Easter eggs, and none of that takes the focus away from Barry and from the Flash. And the fact that Muschietti is able to do that through his storytelling is just it was so beautiful to me. Because, well, listen, this movie, there's no denying it. This movie is the scale of this movie is multiversal, but yet it feels so small. Yeah. When you take into account the themes and motifs and the character beats, and they're able to make you feel small while time and space is happening all around you. And there are times in this film where that got me extremely emotional. The character moments are really well done, and it's really fantastic. It
really is. I mean, in terms of like any possible cons, and like this doesn't take away from how great the movie is, other than Sasha maybe not being as much. It feels a little bit like a long movie at times. There's a few scenes to where maybe I tighten this up a bit, or some that, even though a lot of the focus is on Barry, it's like, I think you know, I agree, like maybe some jokes don't always work either. So, but this is like minutia. I think they worked more for me than they did for you. I found myself laughing more than you did, definitely, in the theater. Oh, absolutely. Wow. But I will say that you are right in that my biggest con, and let's jump into our cons, is like you said, while the pacing is excellent, this movie, from the starting line to the finish line, it is a race. It very rarely does it slow down, and when it does slow down, it's these very
beautiful and well done character moments that are necessary for the plot of the film. So I think the pacing is excellent, but there is a little bit of fat that I would have cut.
Yeah.
When it's right after the two Barrys meet.
Yes.
Which is not a spoiler, it's in all the trailers.
Right, and that was my other, again, minor critique is like, it's also very jarring because they very intentionally make these characters complete polar opposites of each other.
Yes.
And the dynamic a little, like, it's always fun, it's a little weird, but it, like, again, that, like, kind of organically develops as the film goes on.
There's one or two scenes after that initial meeting that definitely drag a little bit.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's really hard to find faults in this movie. The score is beautiful.
Oh God, yes.
There's some really beautiful score, like, pieces. Like, really, characters, there's familiar character themes, which are hinted at, but I think the score is extremely well done. I think the visuals are well done. Even the villains, like, there are multiple villains in this film, but I think the one thing that really stood out to me, and I said this to you as soon as we walked out of the theater, I think the main villain of this film is grief and loss. And it's a villain that you can't really beat. You can't really outrun loss and pain and trauma. And the themes of trauma and grief and loss are so strong in this movie and such a strong through line. That's why you needed characters like two Batmen.
Right.
Because pain and trauma is their superpower, essentially. It's what made them who they are.
And even though it's a tough pill to swallow, that's what elevates this film, because this could have been kind of a dumb, stupid, wacky, like, adventure if they really want it to be, and they didn't rest on that laurel. They really go for a way bigger gut punch than even I expected.
Absolutely. A lot of humor, but even more heart in this film. So, Nikki, time to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 5 lightning bolts. What do you rate The Flash?
Oh my gosh. This is hard because my personal opinion doesn't really reflect in terms of how I feel about it quality-wise, and I know those can be considered to be two different things. I could, on a better day, maybe after rewatch, I'll go a little higher, but for now, I will go 4 out of 5 lightning bolts.
Okay, that's fair. For me, I have a very hard time finding fault in this film. There are some things to me that are obvious cons, like we talked about, the dragging points, the lack of Sasha Calle, Supergirl. But overall, this movie moved me. I mean, we saw this a while ago, so it was a back-to-back Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and then this, where I found myself emotionally devastated in both of those movies. So it's going to be very high for me. I'm going to rate The Flash 4.5 lightning bolts out of 5. Go see this movie. Run to the theaters as fast as you can and check out The Flash, because you will not regret it. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And until next time, guys, stay versed.